Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. The new book by Melissa Wickam is an exploration of self-love and faith. It's titled, Mommy, Am I Different? Well, we're going to be talking all about this right now. The author, Melissa, is right here with me. Melissa, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
I've been looking forward to talking with you and finding out more about Mommy, Am I Different? So, Melissa, can you tell me all about this book?
Absolutely. This book is a story written about a mother and an adopted child. But I want to start by saying this is not an adoption story, that this applies to everyone who has at any time in their lives felt like they are different or didn't fit in. In this case, the little girl is told that she doesn't look the same and her hair is dark and her eyes are a different shape, and she gets laughed at even for her name. And she goes to her mother and she starts, she's crying and she says, Mommy, am I different? And her mother surprises her by saying, yes, you're different and so am I. And she looks at her mom and tells her, but you look like everyone I see every day. You don't look different. And the exploration goes on where they have this conversation where she basically shares with her daughter that how we look on the outside is not who we are. It's only when we can see with our hearts that we can see it as, what everyone truly is. And that's where the gift of every human being lies. So it's a really fun book that's written in rhyme, which I think is a lot of fun for children. But it really has a heartfelt message that we really need to look beyond what we can see with our eyes.
What a great message. Melissa, so how were you inspired to get started on it?
Well, it's a funny story. As a writer, I oftentimes jot down thoughts in my journal. There's a line in the book. It says, our eyes tell one story, our hearts yet another. I wrote that down years before I actually thought about writing a children's story. And then there was another thought that came to my mind is, where I wondered, would there be prejudice in the world if we couldn't see each other? And it was kind of a melding of those two ideas. And then scripture verse of Samuel anointing David, where God says, we don't look on the outside, we look at the heart. God looks at the heart. So it was kind of those ideas that came together. And I said, this message needs to be out there. We really need to teach our children that, it's not what we look like, and, what's really funny is, as we age, we change. So are we really who we are? Are we the version of ourselves that people see on the outside, or are we, the part inside of us is unchangeable, our hearts, our soul, our spirit?
So, Melissa, what does your writing background look like? It sounds like you're kind of experienced in all this.
I've been writing most of my life. It's funny. I have written pretty much every type of material out there, from technical writing to presentations to training material. Before I ever called myself a writer, I was a writer. But so it's funny that I, chose to write a children's book. I did also write another book, self-published, but this is the first one that I worked with a publishing company on, and I'm very proud of it.
Once you started on it, was this a long journey overall?
It was. I think, the funny part about this story was I actually tried to publish it several years ago. And at the time, publishing companies weren't looking for children's books that taught lessons. The feedback I got was, it's a beautiful story, but we don't think we'll be successful with it. And I thought that was a shame, because I think we have an opportunity when we read our children's stories to share lessons that are important. But Christian Faith Publishing was very interested in the material when I shared it with them.
And one thing that's really important in books like this are the illustrations. So was that a smooth process to get those lined up with what you were seeing in your head?
That's another funny story, because, as a writer, obviously I see the pictures in my mind. But when they said to me, Melissa, you need to describe every scene just the way you see it, I panicked. I said, what do you mean? I thought an illustrator would take my words and create this story. And they calmly walked me through it and said, you know what? You wrote these words. You see it. So once I calmed down, I was able to envision each page, and they were wonderful at Christian Faith Publishing. The illustrator really exceeded my expectations with the drawings.
Well, this book has such a great message. Again, it's titled, Mommy, Am I Different? It's written by Melissa Wickam, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also right down the street at your local bookshop. Melissa, thanks so much for coming on the show and telling me all about this. It was really nice talking with you.
Thank you so much. I very much enjoyed it.
Sitting down with me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Sandra Lee Samuels, Ph.D. Sandra, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Thank you, Corey. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I wanted to congratulate you. You have a new book out titled Building Faith. Sandra, can you tell me what readers are going to find here?
Well, to be honest, at first when I thought of writing this book, I was thinking of maybe just believers. But then I realized that I would be leaving a large audience out. So one will find information not just on building faith, but it will take them on a journey that is somewhat cyclical. So there is importunity, there is waiting, there is working, endurance, resilience, and transformation. I was drawn to faith because it has been a recurring theme in my life. And I do believe that it has been debated among theologians as well as philosophers. But for me, I am using the biblical faith that we find in Hebrews 11, verse 1. I love the answer version of it that says that faith means being sure of the things we hope for and knowing that something is real, even if we do not see it. So that has been the basis for my framework, and it is entwined in the lived experiences of a girl called Kate.
So, Sandra, what was that spark? Where did this all come from?
Kate's story had to be told. That's one of the deciding factors. And I also believe that I had to share with others. So I wanted to at least build this framework so that others who are on the journey can understand really that it's okay. In academia, many people tend to frown on bringing biblical truths into the science. For me, I find it to be quite complementary as it gives you other ways of knowing. So I'm definitely unapologetic in terms of where I've gone with this. Many authors have been there before. Many are so doing right now and hopefully will continue to do in the future. So for me, it's a blend of science and faith so that we can better understand and discover, and hopefully truths can be identified, revealed, and shared with others.
Is this your first published book, or do you have experience in this?
Well, if I were to take my Ph.D. dissertation into consideration, which is a book in its own right, then I would probably say that this is my second published work.
So once you started on this, Sandra, was this a long journey from beginning to end, the writing and publishing and everything?
To be honest, it has been a journey. One that I probably, if I knew about the journey and what it entails, might have been a little bit apprehensive. But yes, it has been a journey, but one that was worth doing, one that took some courage and vulnerability at the same time. But I do believe that it was writing itself long before I knew it would be a book. I am happy it is now tangible and, it is being shared with others.
Yeah, now it's a tangible thing. It's real. So when you held that first copy in your hands, Sandra, what kind of a moment was that like for you?
Wow. Complex emotions. I was happy that the process was over, delighted that I had shared. And, there was still that feeling of dread also. Oh, my God, what have you done? Wow, it's out there. You can't take it back. But then surrender. And, of course, above all, a feeling of gratitude and humility, and also asking the question, as it were, okay, Lord, what next? Yeah, there's always that question. Yeah.
What a wonderful book. This is definitely needed out there. Again, it's titled Building Faith. It's written by Sandra Lee Samuels, Ph.D., published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, also right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Sandra, it's been fantastic talking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
It has been a pleasure, Corey, and thank you for having me.
Stu, the Greedy Little Ant. It's the new book written by JSway, and it's an educational tale about character and personal growth. We're going to be talking all about it right now. JSway is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. JSway, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Corey.
It's great to be talking with you, and I can't wait to find out about Stu, the Greedy Little Ant. So can you tell me all about what readers will find here?
Well, first of all, the story of Stu, the Greedy Little Ant is about a little ant named Stu who starts out thinking only about himself. And through the making of unsavory decisions, Stu is exiled from the colony by the queen. Now, he thinks that he's gained newfound freedom, but that's because he doesn't know what fate is lurking. And as he travels on his adventurous journey, he's going to encounter or engage with colorful bug characters like Anthony the Aardvark, Mickett and Pickett, the alarming crickets, Boogie and Woogie, the whole digging beetle brothers, Tweety, Dee and Needy, the beautifully colored ladybugs, and Rip, Mac, and Mo, the troublesome grasshoppers. And it's through these colorful bugs' eyes, Corey, that Stu begins to view different perspectives. He learns the value of love, caring, sharing, and considering the feelings of others. He realizes the importance of being responsible and accountable for his actions, and he understands how his actions can affect others, especially his family, the Ant Queendom.
I love it. JSway, what sorts of readers do you think this is most suited for?
We are targeting, pregnant mothers because that's where reading begins, when the mom is reading to the unborn baby, all the way to the age of 12.
So how did this come about? This is really interesting, JSway. Where'd you get the idea for it?
The idea was actually presented to me. At the time, I loved the concept. I loved the storyline. But what really, really inspired me to bring this book into fruition, Corey, is that today's technology, it's like we're inundated with it, and our children are becoming emotionally undeveloped. They're becoming desensitized and, quite frankly, socially inept. And so the concept of having a book based on values, principles, morals, giving children the opportunity to read with their parents, connecting, bonding, developing healthy social interactions, and properly growing emotionally, as well as beginning to become more sensitive to others, is what inspired me to bring this book into fruition.
So when it comes to writing and publishing everything, are you new to all this, or do you have experience in it?
I have some experience. I write poems. I've had articles that have been published, but this is absolutely my first published book.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So being your first one, was this a long journey from beginning to end, the writing and publishing everything?
It was because, I'm a serial entrepreneur. And so, I had to create that time to really become dedicated and committed to getting it done. And of course, COVID didn't help. It kind of slowed things down.
So once you handed that manuscript off to your publisher, to Christian Faith, and you started that whole process, what did you find the most challenging part about that publishing end of things for you?
It was really the editing part of it. You really have to have a lot of patience because you're going to be asked to read it, certainly in my case, more than once. And this is a children's book, right? So imagine someone with a novel, 300 pages or more, and you have to go through that, at least I did, carefully, word for word, sentence for sentence, and just make sure everything is not only edited correctly, but to your liking, so that your essence of what you're trying to convey, your energy, is still within the context.
So looking down the road, do you think you would do this again? Do you think you'd maybe have some more books in you?
Actually, I do. I have a book that I'm working on now. This one is going to be a co-ed book, and it's just telling a lot about life stories. And even though it is co-ed, I just have a feeling it's going to especially touch the hearts of and be relatable to also a lot of women.
Well, this book has such a great message. Again, it's titled Stu, the Greedy Little Ant. It's written by JSway and published by Christian Faith Publishing, and pretty much available everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, JSway, it's been great talking with you tonight and learning all about Stu, the Greedy Little Ant. Thanks again.
Thank you, Corey.
Author Stanley McDearmon has written a stirring novel titled Horrid, and we're going to be talking all about it. Stanley is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Stanley, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I'm curious about Horrid, Stanley. Can you tell me all about this?
Well, by the title, it is called Horrid. It is a horror story. It's about a group of people who decide to try their hand at bringing something forth from hell. They've been trying for several years. It's a small coterie of devil worshippers. And this fateful evening, they got lucky. I don't know whether it's the proper word to use is lucky, but nevertheless, it worked. This ideal of theirs of trying to bring something forth from hell succeeded. But they was not very happy when it came into our realm.
Stanley, would you say that horror fans are the ones that this is best for?
I would imagine it would be best for horror fans, but however, I think it's best for anyone who just loves a different form of genre.
So how'd this all come about, Stanley? Where'd you get the idea for this?
Well, when I was a young man, I had a lady friend, and we both loved movies. We also had a thing for horror movies. So she told me, you should write a horror story. Well, one thing led to another. One minute I'm in college and doing some other things, and when I had some time as I got older, I said, let me do something. And I started researching and having some ideas of a horror story. And somehow I came upon this ideal of a small coterie of individuals who wish to dip inside the forbidden world of the occult. And their leader kept them going, and they all decided to do just that, to bring something forth from hell, and they did.
So have you ever been published before this, or is this kind of new ground for you, Stanley?
This is new grounds. This is our first story, my first book, and this is something totally new to me.
Wow, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
How long of a journey was this for you, the writing and publishing and everything?
Well, the writing, if I have any kind of fault, it would be somewhat procrastination. I had life to live and a family to take care of. At the time, it was quite difficult. So finally, I was able to put my ideas on paper, and when I had some time, I started writing and finally getting it together. And about sometime this year, I finally got my book published.
So yeah, once you had your manuscript and you started working with Newman Springs, what did you find the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
Let's see, did I find anything challenging? Well, I don't think I did, because to be perfectly honest with you, Newman Springs was very good to me. I didn't have any kind of problems with them. They seem to continue to let me know what they're doing, and they will always give me some kind of feedback as to what's next, and they will always look for some input from me. So I have nothing but glowing reviews to give them as of right now. I have nothing bad to say about Newman Springs at all.
So a lot of time and hard work went into this. Stanley, when you were finally holding the first copy of Horrid in your hands, what kind of a moment was that like for you?
It was a great feeling, but it was a great feat for my kids. I have a 41-year-old and a 24-year-old, or soon to be 24, and they kept asking me about my book, when it's going to be on the market, what you're going to do with it. So finally, when it came into reality, I let my son and my daughter know that the book is out and it can be published. They were quite overjoyed. In fact, I think they were more happy than I was. Not that I wasn't, but these are my kids. I try to set an example as a role model for my kids. No matter how old they are, whether he's 41 or whether she's 24 or soon to be 24, as a parent, you still want to be a role model. So, they was more happy than I was. I was very ecstatic, but they was gleaming with, they let me know how proud they were of me. So that made me feel good.
So now that you're officially a published author, your work is out there for the world, Stanley, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Just having other people read my work and let me know what they think about it. I'm not afraid of criticism. I'm not afraid of criticism. If there's some things I need to learn from having people read my book, then I'll take it. Constructive criticism you can never be wrong about. Well, I'm looking forward to people enjoying the book. But again, if they have any constructive criticism, I'll take that. And as I move along in this world of publishing, I'll remember that always.
I think readers are going to be really into this book. Again, it's titled Horrid. It's written by Stanley McDearmon and published by Newman Springs Publishing, and they're available at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Stanley, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. I thank you for having me.
The new book by Becky Lynn Tubbs is titled A Gift of Love. And this is a celebration of life's most meaningful experiences. We get to talk all about this. Becky is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Becky, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
And thank you, Corey, for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Becky, and I'm really curious to learn about A Gift of Love. Can you tell me all about this?
Sure. My book, A Gift of Love, which is a poetry collection of heartfelt moments, is a collection of inspirational, heartfelt moments shared with family, friends, and co-workers for over 40 years. I've written my poetry and finally was able to put it together in a book, and I'm very proud of it.
So what was that spark, Becky? What made you decide to publish this?
I actually had an individual who heard one of my poems, and he was so impressed that he told me that I needed to share my poetry with the Christian community, and he wanted to give me a contact name and number, and he did that, and hence that started my journey.
So would you say it's primarily a Christian audience you wrote this for?
My poems are faith-based, definitely faith-based. But they're also written for special people, special occasions in my life, including weddings, births, friendships, sympathy, words of encouragement. That's to name a few of my chapters.
So when it comes to publishing, Becky, is this your first published work?
It is my first published work. Yes, Corey.
Congratulations. Was this a long process overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Well, it's my 40 years of poetry, so it has been a long journey. I have been told all through the years, from family and friends that I needed to do something with my poetry, so it was always at the back of my mind.
So once you started working with Christian faith and everything, there's that publishing process. There's an awful lot involved there. Becky, what did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
Well, I thought it was going to be a shorter journey. The process took about 1 year and 8 months from the beginning of acceptance to the release of my book. So just creating it through that time, it was very exciting, but a little challenging at the same time, with all the editing and going through all of that. But it just is all worth it in the end when you hold it in your hand and, see your creation.
What was that like for you? It's finally a real thing. You're finally holding it, Becky. What was that moment like for you?
I was overwhelmed with feelings of joy, love for myself, and satisfaction to complete this amazing journey.
So now you're officially a published author. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of all of it for you?
So becoming a published author gave me a sense of completion after 40 years of writing. I am still writing. When I get inspired, then I can sit down and, create a poem in a rhyming manner and share that with someone. So the satisfaction of others reading my poetry and feeling inspired, hopefully, with some of my words.
So you said you're still writing. Do you think you would do this again? Do you think you're going to publish some more down the road?
I feel like if I get enough to submit for another publication, I could probably do that. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I'm looking at the book right now. This is a beautiful book. Physically, it looks great. Can you tell me about that, the cover, the illustrations, everything?
Thank you. I was very pleased with the way it all came out. Everything has a significant meaning, with my cover and the artwork. So everything just really came together beautifully for me, and I was very proud of it. I am very proud of it, yes.
A lot of people who are listening to us right now are authors who are just starting out in all this. So, Becky, do you have maybe some advice that you could throw out there for them?
Yes. So if you have the dream and the desire to share your creativity with others, definitely pursue that dream. Everything will fall into place once you begin your journey, and it's a very rewarding journey.
What a blessing this will be to so many readers. Again, it's titled A Gift of Love, Poetry Collection of Heartfelt Moments. It's written by Becky Lynn Tubbs, published by Christian Faith Publishing, really available everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Becky, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks so much for being on the show with me.
Corey, thank you so much. I totally appreciate this interview, and I thank you again.
The new book by Shána Bernice. It's a journey of faith and resilience. It's titled Surviving in a Time Where Prayer is a Distant Memory. And we're going to be talking all about this right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. The author, Shána, is right here with me. Shána, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Corey.
Absolutely. I can't wait to find out all about surviving in a time where prayer is a distant memory, Shána. Can you tell me all about this?
Absolutely. So initially, this book came to me through prayer. It wasn't something that I was excited to write about. However, it was something that was needed for a time such as today where, prayer, a lot of people don't want to pray because that means we have to wait. In a society in which we are expected to do things like yesterday, right? We wanted popcorn society. We wanted fast food. Like everything is fast. So prayer, there's no time limit on that. So you could pray about something and may not receive a response for a couple months, years even. And people are losing their endurance, I think. So this was definitely something that God gave me, placed on my heart to write. And to write my story, write my journey with prayer and how it allowed me to not just survive, but to thrive.
Would you say this is primarily a book for believers then?
I would say it's a book for believers and non-believers. For the non-believers, those that are open to hearing a story, right? And I believe that my story relates to the person who's had issues with their parents growing up, right? For me, I grew up in a single-parent household. So those that were the oldest child, I know they can totally relate. People who've been through divorce can relate. So I think that it's more than just for the believer, but for anyone.
So it sounds like a lot of your personal experiences and things you've been through really went into this.
It did, yes. So that's why I was saying in the beginning why I was very reluctant, because I'm very much a keep it to myself type of person. It was definitely a tough thing to do, but I know it was necessary.
So have you ever done anything like this before? Do you have experience in all of this, or is this kind of something new for you?
This is something completely new. This was not anything that I even imagined that I would do, but it was definitely rewarding. I think that during the journey, it also allowed me to see certain areas where I think I still had some work to do. So it was good, though, a good experience.
So once you set off on this journey, was it a long one for you? Was this a long period of time overall?
Yes, it was. So it was a long journey. It was, a journey from, I would say, like I said, from childhood. But I don't really go into, when I was 5 years old or anything like that, but just some of the challenges that I had as a teenager, young adult, and then going into adulthood. So it was over a span of different things, or time, I should say.
So you had your manuscript already, and you started working with the publisher, Christian Faith. Shána, what did you find the most challenging part of that publishing end of things?
So during the publishing, I think, honestly, it was rereading because it was already hard enough to write the certain experiences that I went through. But just kind of during the editing process, it was, okay, let me make sure that this is right. And then sometimes I feel that, what people don't talk about is you almost relive some of the things that you have to talk to.
So much time, so much work went into this, and when you were finally holding it in your hands, you got that first copy, Shána. What was that like for you?
I cried. I cried so hard. I was excited. I felt accomplished. It was an amazing point in my life where it was, okay, well, I knew God had told me to write down my story. And I said, okay, well, if God is telling me to do this, then I know that it's going to help someone else. And I think that is what gave me the most joy, knowing that I completed something that I, didn't think I could. Because it was a long time for me to even finish writing it, because during certain times where I was writing, I needed to pause, right? I needed to just stop for a moment because it became overwhelming. So finally finishing it and seeing the finished product, it was like, wow, this is really me. This is my part of history that's going to be in the world.
Oh, what a wonderful book. Again, this is titled Surviving in a Time Where Prayer is a Distant Memory. It's written by Shána Bernice and published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Shána, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight and learning about your story. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Corey. It was my pleasure indeed.
I'm looking at a book that's a bilingual children's book celebrating self-worth and spreading happiness. It's titled The Little Paper Heart. It's written by Emily G. Ortega, and Emily is right here. We get to talk all about the book. Emily, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I can't wait to find out about The Little Paper Heart, Emily. Can you tell me what readers are going to get into here?
Yeah, so this is just a little children's book. It's about a little Valentine's made by a child, and the Valentine doesn't think that it is really that great or anything particularly special, but it learns throughout the book that no matter who you are or what you look like or what you think about yourself, you are capable of doing great things, and everybody has their own unique special gifts.
Oh, that's a wonderful message, Emily. Where'd you get the idea for this? How'd this all come about?
So actually it came from my husband. He's always watching me read lots of different books, and he was always telling me, you should write a book. And so one day I sat down and just scribbled a story onto a piece of scrap paper, and that's where this all came from.
Wow, so this is your first book then?
Yes, it is.
Congratulations. That's a huge deal, your first one. So was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Yes, it was a pretty long journey. It took about a year, but it was all very exciting, and it was really fun to do all the different aspects of the book and to work with all the different editors and publishers, and especially the artists who really brought the book to life with the pictures and the illustrations. And it was just a really fun journey, and I enjoyed every part of it.
You were talking about the illustrations, and I can imagine that would be maybe a tricky process, getting those pictures that you have in your head, out onto paper. So that was a pretty smooth thing.
Yes, it was fun, and I worked with some really great people, and I really appreciate everybody's talent and a lot of support from all the people around me helping this come together.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, was there anything about that publishing process that you found challenging?
For me, the most challenging part was actually doing the Spanish part for it, because originally I don't speak Spanish. My husband is originally a Spanish speaker, so I worked with my husband a lot with translating it, and it taught me so much. But yes, that was definitely the most challenging part, was writing it in English and then translating it to Spanish.
There is nothing like that finished product. Emily, when you were finally holding that first copy in your hands for the first time, what was that like for you?
That moment was really great. For me, I love hard copies of books. I've never personally been a fan of ebooks or anything like that. So to get paper in my hand and to have a hard copy of my own book and be able to flip through the pages, it just felt really good and felt like a good accomplishment. And to have that and be able to look at it and be able to have my children hold my book, and it just felt really good.
So now it's official, Emily. You're a published author. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of all that for you?
Being able to share what's in your mind and the things that you enjoy with other people, and, stories that you think are special and important, and, other families being able to share that with each other, and, reading and bringing people together is something I really like. So, the fact that other people are reading something that I wrote and sharing it with their children just makes me feel happy and proud about that.
Looking ahead, Emily, do you think you got some more books in you? Do you think we'll see some more?
Yes, so I'm currently working on another children's book, so hopefully in the next couple of years we'll see another one come out.
Well, Emily, a lot of people who are listening to us right now are authors who are just starting out. So do you maybe have some advice that you could throw out there for them?
Yes, my advice would be it's possible no matter what you think. It takes some time and some dedication, and there's definitely some frustrating moments when you're trying to think of the right words to put down on paper. But in the end, if you just say what's on your mind and what's on your heart, and you stick to your values and you have faith in yourself, you can definitely do whatever you think, whatever you want to. You can just make it happen as long as you believe in yourself and you stay dedicated.
Oh, what a wonderful message in this book. Again, it's titled The Little Paper Heart. It's written by Emily G. Ortega, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and pretty much available everywhere. So check it out at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Emily, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about the book. Thanks again for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking at a book right now, which is a memoir documenting the author's travels with his cat while exploring America. It's written by Christopher Small. It's titled Chris and Chloe Travel the East Coast. And I get to find out all about this book. The author, Chris, is right here with me now. Chris, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Chris, I'm so curious about Chris and Chloe Travel the East Coast. Can you tell me all about what readers are going to find here?
Yeah, so it's basically, so for the past 4 years, I've been traveling around the country in my RV. I sold my house in Arizona and bought the RV and left Arizona for Maine. And I've kind of just been, the book kind of documents the first 3 years of my adventure from Maine to Florida. And it'll talk about just my experiences living in the RV, talk about when I adopted my cat Chloe in Maine and how she's kind of been with me basically since I started with the RV. And just kind of the good and the bad of living in an RV, working as a full-time Uber driver, and just going down the East Coast.
Wow, what a lifestyle change, picking up and going from Arizona to Maine. Chris, how did this come about? Where did you get the idea to write this and tell your story to the world?
I wanted to share my adventures. I wanted to be able to entice others who might be interested on how to do it and kind of show them how I kind of started my progress, and just so that way they could kind of, I guess, have someone to be inspired, just something to inspire them to do the same thing if they want.
Chris, what kinds of readers do you think would be really into this?
I think bloggers, people who love traveling, people who love watching people on YouTube. In fact, I kind of consider this book almost like a reading version of what you might see on YouTube of someone posting about their travels and blogging about it or vlogging about it. This is just more of like a visual, something that they can read and something that they can, I take all kinds of photos in each of the states I go to and have all kinds of scenic shots of the different places that I've traveled to in each of the states. And I think it gives people a chance to see kind of the country through my eyes.
So is this something you've done before, writing and publishing, Chris, or is this kind of new territory for you?
It's new, I guess, kind of the way that I decided to go about it. This time I decided to try and have Covenant Publishing market it for me. When I was in high school, I actually did self-publish some fiction fantasy books. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a lot of sales in them. I still have my own copies of them. But so I kind of knew a little bit about it, but at the same time, too, it's kind of going into new waters as well, I feel like.
So once you had your manuscript all together and you started working with Covenant Books, what did you find the most challenging part about that whole publishing end of things?
I think the toughest part, was making it in such a way, I guess, that I was unsure if readers were going to enjoy it. And I think that was the whole thing that I've always been worried about is I think it turned out great, but are other people going to really enjoy it as well?
There's nothing like seeing that finished product. You put so much time and so much hard work into this, Chris. So when you got that first copy, holding it in your hands, what was that moment like for you?
It was great. I think it turned out really, really great. It turned out better than I could have imagined it would have. Originally, I was heavy bent on promoting it as a hardcover copy, but now that I've seen the paperback copy as well, I think that they're both amazing.
So it's official. You're a published author. Your work is out there for the world, Chris. When you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Being able to share my adventures with others, being able to, my family and friends have, the ones who have purchased it and read it, they've said that they've loved it and they think it turned out really well. So I'm excited about that. I've been journaling kind of the whole time that I've been doing this. And so what's in that book is only a portion of I guess, the adventure so far. So I'm excited to hopefully publish more as I move around the country, the Midwest and the West Coast as well.
Chris, we have a lot of listeners right now, authors who are just starting out. Do you have maybe something in the way of advice that you could offer them?
Be patient. The editing process, I think it does take a while to get everything done, and don't feel like you need to rush it.
Wow, what an interesting book here. Again, it's titled Chris and Chloe Travel the East Coast. It's written by Christopher Small and published by Covenant Books. And you can find it really everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also at traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Chris, it's been really fun talking with you tonight and learning about your story. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Author Rosemary Wickam has written a book for young readers titled The Adventures of Little Timmy. And we get to find out all about this book. The author, Rosemary, is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Rosemary, welcome. I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you, and I'm glad to be learning all about the adventures of little Timmy. Rosemary, can you tell me all about this?
It's a book about, I gave a mouse kind of a personality to help deal with the loss of friends and loved ones and how he works through it to try to gain hope and try again, have the courage to try again for new friendships and love. So it's kind of a help tool for those with loss.
And this is for young readers. So how young of readers would you say?
I've had even as young as 5 be able to get into the story. So my idea of the book, though, was kind of as a family unit. The parent or parents may read it as a nighttime story and continue through the days until it's finished.
Rosemary, how did this all come about? How'd you get the idea to start on it?
It just kind of came to me. I was dealing with some loss in my life, and I have always found it comforting and everything to write. And it started out as just a very short story, pretty much the first chapter, and then it just kept going. And it flowed so fast, I had a hard time keeping up writing it. My hand wouldn't move fast enough. It was very unusual how it came to me.
So is this your first time doing this kind of thing, or do you have experience in it?
I've published a couple of poems, but this is my first book that I've ever sent off and got published.
So overall, was this a long process for you, the writing and publishing and everything?
The publishing, yes. I wrote it many years ago, probably about close to 30 years ago, and it sat on the shelf. I'd sent it off one time, and they had wanted me to change it from lyric form into a different style. But it came to me so smooth and so quick and seemed so natural that I didn't want to change that part. So I just kind of set it to one side. I went into teaching and got distracted with that. And then this just kind of came out of the blue.
I understand that you illustrated this as well, so you're multi-talented.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I started drawing at probably the age of 5, recognized in 2nd grade, but early drawer, and it just came natural. So I love to draw and I love to write. So the two finally came together and I did a book.
You said that publishing process drew on pretty long. So what did you find the most challenging part about that?
I wasn't prepared with the illustrations. I slowed down the publishing part. It only took a year or a little less than a year once I got hooked up with a publishing company. And they helped me through it really, really well. They were a godsend. But it wasn't the writing that took long, and it wasn't the publishing. It was kind of fitting those two together at the right time in my life, and it just happened. So my pictures held me up. I only had really one illustration done, and so I had to do all the others pretty quickly.
I could only imagine what you were thinking, what you were feeling whenever this is finally a real thing. You were holding it in your hands for the first time, Rosemary. What was that like for you?
Wow, it did happen, was my reaction. It was nice to see it put into a form where others could use it and enjoy it.
And now it's official. You're a published author. So what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
My most rewarding was when I got a picture text to me from a parent that showed her little boy reading the book out loud to the family. That was the most special thing.
So looking ahead, do you think you would do this all again? Do you think you got maybe some more books in you?
I've already got things running around my head, and it's a definite yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, what a blessing this book is going to be. Again, it's titled The Adventures of Little Timmy. It's written by Rosemary Wickam, published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing, and really it's available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Rosemary, it's been absolutely wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about the adventures of little Timmy. Thanks again for being here.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you.
Come, Live, Love. Guidance for Life. That's the new book by Emmanuel Lord, as told to Sharon Sue Hiller. And Sharon is here with me now, and we're going to talk all about the book. Sharon, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for calling.
Absolutely. I'm curious about Come, Live, Love, Sharon. Can you tell me all about the book?
The book is a compilation of messages that I received during my quiet times with God.
and it seemed that the words were coming from my heart. And I wrote what I heard with my eyes closed so that I could concentrate. And I called it Come, Live, Love because throughout the book, I keep hearing the word come to me, live your best life, and love others as you love me.
Sharon, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
Well, I think it could connect with anyone, really. To me, it's written to God's children of all ages, which includes everyone in the world. I think those who follow God closely would enjoy it, and those who have kind of wandered around from the path would also enjoy it, and it might draw them back.
Can you tell me a little bit about your writing background and everything? Is this all new to you, or do you have experience there?
It's pretty new to me. It is my first published work, and I can't really take credit for it. It's God's book, and I just feel like I'm a conduit for it. It took me a long time to write the book. I heard that I should write it probably 3 or 4 years before I started to write it. When I finally heard that it wasn't me coming up with the words, it was to be God giving me words, it made it a lot easier. I just had to find time to do it.
So once you had that manuscript all ready and you started working with your publisher, Covenant, Sharon, what did you find the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
I guess trying to put things together. Every day I would get some words, not every day, but when I wrote, and then just trying to decide an order to put things in, still kind of random. But the most challenging thing was probably editing, because I didn't want to change what I believe God told me.
So now you're officially a published author. This is your first book, Sharon. So what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I think probably the most rewarding thing is that I can share with others what it is that God shared with me. Knowing that it has helped some people to draw closer to Him has been the most rewarding.
Like you said, a lot of time, a lot of hard work went into this. So once it was finally a real thing, you're holding the first copy in your hands, Sharon. What kind of moment was that like for you?
Well, when I first held it, I felt pretty good about it till I read it. I found so many errors that I was kind of embarrassed, actually. I fixed 32 things the first time, and then I found 5 or 6 more errors the next time I read it, and I found 5 or 6 the next time. Just every time I read it, the edits were the most difficult. So, what I learned was I probably could have printed it out and read it out loud to myself so that I could catch all the errors. I don't know that I would have, but every time I read it, there's another thing I wish I would have changed.
Yeah, definitely tough to catch them all, yeah.
So I guess my advice to other authors is to be patient through the process of it. It took over 2 years to get to the marketing part of the book, so it was a long process.
I'm looking at it right now, and the cover's really beautiful to this, Sharon. Was that a smooth process to get that all put together?
I thought they did a wonderful job with the cover. I gave them a thing that I thought it would be nice to have something coming down like from heaven in colors. And I thought having silhouettes by a lake would be nice because you can kind of see the blue at the bottom. I thought they did a wonderful job just putting it together. I was very impressed when I looked at it. I thought they took the ideas that I had, and I thought they'd use one of the ideas, and they took 3 of my ideas and put it all into one. And I really liked the fonts that they chose for the book. To me, it looked very professional, which was very nice.
Well, sounds like this is going to bless so many readers. Again, it's titled Come, Live, Love, Guidance for Life. It's written by Emmanuel Lord, as told to Sharon Sue Hiller, and it's published by Covenant Books and really available everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Sharon, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, and it was a pleasure to share with you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.